Hello everyone, Clxpz here, and today we have a new series that I want to try here on the channel for a top 10 series. Yes, top 10 series that used to be covered way back in like the machinima days, for those of you who know. And our first video of the day will be covering
Resident Evil.
Resident Evil is one of the most iconic franchises in gaming history. And over the years, it's gone through a lot of changes. We've had slow-paced survival horror, full-on action, and even experimental spin-offs that tried completely new ideas. And honestly, that's what makes ranking these games so difficult, because depending on what you value, your list could look completely different. But today, we're doing it. With the release of Resident Evil Requiem, it's the perfect time to rank the top 10 Resident Evil games of all time, based on gameplay, horror, replayability, and most importantly, what the community actually thinks. And I'm telling you right now, this list is gonna make some people very, very mad.
Hey, are you listening? Hey!
Number 10.
Kicking off the list at number 10 is Resident Evil Village. And this is where things already get a little controversial. I know, because Village is... it's a good game, but it's also one of the most divisive in the series. What Village does better than almost any Resident Evil game is variety. Every section feels completely different. You've got the gothic horror of Castle Dimitrescu, which feels very classic Resident Evil with puzzles and tight spaces. Then you've got the Beneviento house, which is easily one of the scariest sections in the entire franchise. And that moment right there proves that this game knows how to do horror. But then, it shifts. As you move forward, the game leans more into action. By the time you hit the factory, it almost feels like a different game entirely. Now, some players love that. I mean, it keeps things fresh, but others feel like it makes the game a little unfocused. And that's really the biggest issue with Village. It doesn't fully commit to one identity. Compare that to something like Resident Evil 7, which fully commits to horror, or Resident Evil 4, which fully commits to action. Village sits right in the middle. Now, gameplay-wise, it feels great. The gunplay is smooth, the upgrade system is satisfying, and the merchant adds a strong sense of progression. You always feel like you're getting stronger, but that's also part of the problem. Because once you're fully upgraded, the game loses a lot of its tension. You go from surviving to dominating. And when you compare that to the best Resident Evil games where you always feel under pressure, that difference really stands out. So while Village is a great game with some incredible moments, it just doesn't quite reach the level of the top entries on this list.
Number 9.
At number 9, we've got Resident Evil 5. And this is where the series really leans into the action. Now don't get it twisted. This game is fun, especially in co-op. Running through the missions with a friend, sharing the resources, coordinating fights. It's one of the most entertaining experiences in the entire franchise. But here's the issue. This doesn't really feel like Resident Evil anymore. The horror is almost completely gone. Instead of tension and slow exploration, you're dealing with wave-based combat, heavy action, and moments that feel more like an action movie than survival horror. Now, mechanically, the game is solid. Gunplay feels good, progression is satisfying, and there's always something happening, which makes it very replayable. And then there's Mr. 7 Minutes himself.
I would expect you to be happier to see us.
Every scene he's in is memorable. He adds a lot of personality and intensity to the game. But when you're ranking Resident Evil games, you have to look at what defines the series. And Resident Evil 5 moves way too far away from that. So even though it's a really fun game, it lands at number 9 because it loses that core identity.
Time to die, Chris.
Number 8.
At number 8, we've got Resident Evil Revelations, and this is one of the most underrated games in the entire series. Originally released on the 3DS, this game had no business being as ambitious as it was. It brought the series back towards survival horror after the action-heavy direction of Resident Evil 5, and you can feel that immediately. The setting, a massive ship in the middle of the ocean, is perfect. It's isolated, it's claustrophobic, and it constantly keeps you on edge. Now, one thing that makes this game unique is its episodic structure. You're constantly switching between characters and timelines, which keeps things interesting. But it can also break immersion a bit. Now, gameplay-wise, this is where Revelations really shines. Ammo is more limited, enemies are more threatening, and you actually have to think about how you approach situations. And then there's the raid mode. This is one of the most addictive side modes in Resident Evil history. A lot of players spend more time here than in the main story. So when you combine strong atmosphere, solid gameplay, and high replayability, Revelations absolutely earns its spot here.
So, you followed Jessica home. You know where she lives now?
Almost. I had her until the very end, but I lost her near the... Hey! You think I'm a stalker, don't you?
Number 7.
At number 7, we've got Resident Evil Requiem, the newest entry in the series. And anytime you rank a brand new game, it's always a bit tricky, because on one hand, Requiem does a lot right. It brings back a darker tone, focuses more on the tension, and clearly tries to balance modern gameplay with classic Resident Evil design, and you can feel that right away. The environments are more grounded, the pacing is slower in a good way, and there's a stronger emphasis on atmosphere compared to some of the more action-heavy recent titles. But at the same time, this is still a new game. And because of that, it hasn't had the time to really prove itself the way older titles have. A big part of what makes games like Resident Evil 4 or Resident Evil 2 so legendary is how well they've held up over time. Requiem hasn't had that test yet. Now, from a gameplay perspective, it feels modern, which is a good thing. Controls are smooth, mechanics feel refined, and overall it's a very polished experience. But some design choices still feel like the developers are experimenting. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it doesn't mean the game doesn't feel as complete as some of the higher ranked entries. Now, when you look at community reception, it's been strong, but not unanimous. Some players love the direction, others think it still hasn't reached the heights of the classics, and that's exactly why it lands at number 7. It's a really good game, and it has the potential to move up over time, but right now, it hasn't earned its spot just yet.
I've done it. I've done it.
Number 6.
Now, I bet you guys were not expecting this, but at number 6, we've got Resident Evil Outbreak, and this one is a fan favorite that was way ahead of its time. If you weren't there when this game dropped, you already know this was Resident Evil trying to do online multiplayer before it was really ever a thing. And because of that, it didn't fully succeed at the time. But looking back now, this game is kinda genius. Outbreak takes the classic survival horror formula and puts you in a group of survivors instead of a single character, and that completely changes how you play. You're not just managing your own resources, you're thinking about the entire team. Who has healing items, who has keys, who's infected. And yes, infection is a huge mechanic here. I mean, we're all infected. But instead of just worrying about dying, you're constantly watching your infection meter slowly go up, creating this constant background tension that never really goes away. Now, let's talk about why fans love this game so much. It's the unpredictability. Every run can play out differently depending on your team, your decisions, and how things go wrong, which they will. But at the same time, the game had limitations. The online system wasn't as smooth as it needed to be, communication was limited, and a lot of players didn't get the full experience because of that. If this game came out today with modern online features, it would probably be one of the best Resident Evil games ever made. And that's exactly why it lands at number 6. Because even with its flaws, the idea behind it, and the experience it creates, is something no other Resident Evil game has truly replicated.
to the family, son.
Number 5 is Resident Evil 7, and this is where the series made a massive comeback. Switching to first person completely changed the experience, making everything feel more personal and more terrifying. The Baker family is one of the best parts of the entire franchise, and the horror here is on another level. The only downside is that the second half loses a bit of that same intensity. Another thing that really makes Resident Evil 7 stand out is how personal it feels. You're not some highly trained agent, you're just trying to survive. And that vulnerability is something the series had been missing for a long time. Even the smallest encounters feel intense because you never feel fully in control. And that's exactly what survival horror should be. Now, do they not have a lot of enemies? Yes, the enemy variety is very lacking, other than the boss battles. But other than that, after Resident Evil 6, Resident Evil 5, wherever it was just action-oriented. Yeah, we had Resident Evil Revelations with a little bit more survival horror, but this dove straight into the horror aspects of what Resident Evil is.
It's good.
Dumb some bitch wasn't no good if it hit him.
Yes.
Get out the way, Marguerite. Hit boy's got to eat. He got to have his supper.
Number 4.
At number 4, we've got the Resident Evil remake from 2002. And this is one of the most important survival horror games ever made. This is how you remake a game the right way. Instead of just updating the graphics and calling it a day, this remake completely enhances the original experience while staying true to what made it special, and you feel that immediately. The atmosphere in this game is unmatched. The Spencer Mansion feels alive in a way that very few games can replicate. Every hallway feels dangerous, every door you open feels like a risk, and the fixed camera angles actually work in the game's favor by limiting your vision and increasing tension. Now, let's talk about one of the biggest additions, the Crimson Heads. This mechanic alone changes how you play the game. In most Resident Evil games, once you take down a zombie, you can move on. But here, if you don't properly deal with them, they come back stronger, faster, and more dangerous. So now, every decision matters. Do you waste resources burning bodies, or do you risk dealing with something worse later? That kind of decision making is what defines survival horror. Now, the pacing in this game is slower, and that's intentional. This isn't a game that you just rush through. It forces you to think, to plan, and to manage your resources carefully. And for some players, that slower pace might be a downside. But for others, it's exactly what makes the game so effective. Now, when you look at community reception, this game is almost universally respected. Even players who prefer the more modern style of Resident Evil still recognize this as one of the purest survival horror experiences in the series. Not to mention, for those of you who hate tank controls, there is an option in this game to have a more modern feel to where you can actually use the analog stick. So, for those of you who do like the more modern Resident Evil games, still give this a try because you don't have to play this game with tank controls. And honestly, if you're talking about what Resident Evil is at its core, this game might be the best representation of it. So why is it not top 3? Because while it perfects the classic formula, the games above it either innovated more, had a bigger impact, or offered a more balanced experience overall. But make no mistake, this is one of the greatest Resident Evil games ever made.
Barry.
That was a close one. A second late, you would have fit nicely into a sandwich.
Really?
Number 3.
Coming in at number 3, we've got Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. I played this on stream for the first time ever this year, and this is one of the most important games in the entire franchise when it comes to tension and replayability. This game took what Resident Evil 2 built and added pressure to it. Constant pressure. Nemesis isn't just a boss, alright? He's a presence. From the moment he's introduced, the game changes. You're no longer just exploring and solving puzzles, you're surviving something that actively hunts you down. And what makes Nemesis so effective is unpredictability. He doesn't always show up the same way. Sometimes he crashes through walls, sometimes he's waiting for you, and sometimes he shows up at the worst possible moment. And that creates something really rare in games. Real panic. Now, let's talk about gameplay design. Resident Evil 3 introduces more action compared to earlier games, but it still keeps that survival horror core intact. You have more mobility, more options, and the dodge mechanic adds a layer of skill that rewards good timing, even if it's not the most well-rounded mechanic. But at the same time, you're still limited on resources, and that balance keeps the tension alive. Another thing that really stands out is the live selection system. This was such a unique feature. At certain moments, the game forces you to make decisions quickly, and those decisions can change how the game plays out. That adds replayability in a way that feels natural, not forced. Now, visually and atmospherically, this game nails the feeling of a city collapsing. Raccoon City feels chaotic, dangerous, and alive in a way that few games at the time could pull off. But it's not perfect. Compared to Resident Evil 2, some players feel like it leans a bit more into action, and certain sections aren't as tightly designed. But even with that, the impact of Nemesis alone is enough to carry this game into the top 3. Because when you think of Resident Evil, you think of being chased. And this game defined that feeling.
Jill!
Brad!
We've got to...
Number 2.
Coming in at number 2, Resident Evil 2. And this is what many people consider the best Resident Evil game ever made. This is the perfect balance of everything the series does well. The horror, the gameplay, the pacing, it all comes together here. The police station is one of the most iconic locations in gaming. Every hallway feels tense, every sound keeps you on edge, and every decision matters because resources are limited, just like 1 and 3. And that's the key. You're never fully comfortable, especially when you have this big-ass man in a green, bulletproof jacket by the name of Mr. X. You always feel like you're just barely surviving, and that's what makes it so effective. Now, the dual character system adds a ton of replayability. Playing as Leon and Claire gives you different perspectives, different experiences, and makes the world feel more connected. And even today, this game still holds up in terms of design. But there's one game that edges it out, and it comes down to impact, gameplay evolution, and just how fun it is to play.
Number 1.
And taking the number 1 spot, Resident Evil 4. This is my favorite Resident Evil game of all time, and honestly, it's one of the greatest games ever made. This game didn't just change Resident Evil, it changed gaming. The over-the-shoulder camera, the aiming system, the pacing, it became the blueprint for third-person shooters for years. But beyond that, I mean, it's just fun. Every encounter feels engaging, every weapon feels satisfying, and the progression system constantly rewards you, making you feel stronger while still throwing new challenges at you. Now, let's talk about iconic moments, because this game is full of them. The village fight, the chainsaw enemy, the castle, the regenerators. There are so many moments that players still talk about today. And then there's the balance. Even though this game leans into action, it still has tension. It still has moments where you feel overwhelmed, where you have to think, and where things can go wrong fast. And that's what puts it above everything else. It's not just a great Resident Evil game. It's one of the most influential and replayable games ever made. And for me, it's number 1.
Put your hands where I can see them.
Sorry, but following a lady's lead just isn't my style.
Put them up now.
Bit of advice, try using knives next time. Works better for close encounters.
And that's my top 10 Resident Evil games of all time. If you agree or completely disagree, drop your list down in the comments, and trust me, I know some of you are going to have Resident Evil 2 at number 1, and I don't blame you. But for me, Resident Evil 4 takes it. If you want more rankings like this, hardest games, bosses, weapons, make sure to subscribe. I've got a lot more coming. Pause. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, don't rage quit, stay legit, and I will see you all in the next one.